Hey, what's up everyone? It's State of Soccer TV and we are back for another World Cup preview. If you caught the last 3 episodes, we've done Qatar, we did England, we did Iran, and today we are previewing Canada. There are 28 weeks left until the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar. And if you're interested in hearing about every single team competing in this World Cup, subscribe right now because today we're talking about our friendly neighbors up north.
It's still a few months out, but the excitement is just growing and growing.
It is. I think today officially it's 200 days out. I'm actually not counting. I just saw a Twitter post about it. So.
Fair.
So we do have 28 weeks. And like I said, Canada is, we'll get into it, but a really exciting team for this World Cup. And let's talk about Canada's World Cup history first, or lack thereof, I'll just say that. But let's hear about their last, appearance, more or less what this means to Canada, what it means to you, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, their lack thereof history. I mean, they went to a World Cup in 1986. They lost all 3 matches. They lost to Russia 2-0. They lost to Hungary 2-0, and they lost to France 1-0. So they're all relatively close games. They didn't score a goal in the World Cup. They didn't get a point. They didn't get a win. So pretty forgettable World Cup, and that was also way back in 1986. Fast forward all these years later, Canada kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, over a year ago, if you would have told me that we'd have qualified for the World Cup, probably wouldn't believe you, let alone topping the Ocho and having the amount of success that we were able to get in the last year. It's been nothing but incredible. It's the movement that needed to happen for this country to really take notice of the sport, to help it grow. And it did exactly that. There's so many different players stepped up, John Herdman especially, but it's a really positive mindset. And I'm not someone going into the World Cup that's going to be like, okay, we're going to go on and win it. I want to go and see what this team can do and hopefully build to 2026, probably a little similar to the US.
And that's the most interesting thing is, I did this World Cup preview video about 4 weeks back, about a month ago, and there's so much unfamiliarity with this Canadian national team. I think that a lot of members of your group, in Group F, Morocco especially, got a lot of comments, Morocco's going to run over Canada. I just think there's a lack of education on this Canadian team, which is why we're doing this episode. The fact that they haven't been in the World Cup since 1986. Let's really quickly kind of capture what it means to supporters in Canada. Is this coming as a surprise walking into qualifications? Did you in particular expect to qualify, or is it still a surprise that you even are playing in 2022?
I mean, it depends, because when every day that goes by, Canada got better and better and better. So it's hard to think all the way back. But I was hopeful. I was taking a look, because CONCACAF can be such a difficult region to qualify from. I mean,
it's underrated in that aspect.
It is. There may not be the most talented players scattered across this region, but they're very difficult atmospheres to go. And it was just in the back of my head being like, okay, maybe this group that hasn't played a competitive match in over a year is going to come together and they're going to get hit by the pressure. They're going to get lack of experience. But so I was kind of, when I put my prediction, I said, I think they'll finish 4th. I think they'll have a good opportunity to go to the Interconfederational, depending on who we match up with. Maybe we can, get New Zealand, go through. So I was hopeful, but I'm a realist. I wasn't set we're going to finish top of the Ocho. And then fast forward a few windows, I'm like, okay, all right. This team looks night and day. They're answering every single window so far. And then they just caught their rhythm and they finished top of the Ocho, which is an incredible achievement. We didn't have to sweat even going into that last window. We were 99.9% qualified. And then the expectations start changing though. And now people are like, okay, now what about a quarterfinal run? What about this? What about that? And I think everyone needs to kind of take a breath. We weren't even expecting to be here. I'm hoping this team can go in here and score a goal in the World Cup. Who's be the first Canadian to ever score a goal in the World Cup? That's going to be insane. Hopefully get a point, maybe a win. See if you can sneak out of the group. But it's magical what it's done. And I've always said, because I've been a fan from a very small town, so I don't have a lot of people to talk to the sport about. But I always said, if this country was to take notice, it would have to be through the World Cup. This Canadian team would have to do something spectacular where the media, the coverage of this and that. I mean, through it, I ended up getting a job with a media company. So it just kind of shows what can happen when this country can believe. And BMO has sold out everywhere is basically sold out since the interest started becoming there. So it's definitely a bit of a sleeping giant, and I think a lot of Canadians are pretty excited for this World Cup.
It is a sleeping giant, and that's kind of why it was by no means a dig when I said lack thereof, because everyone's aware of that. This has been building momentum. I mean, look at the U.S. from 1950 to 1990, and it's the same exact existence since then, slowly building. But I mean, this is arguably your golden generation right now. I mean, it is the golden generation right now. So let's talk about the manager, John Herdman. Let's talk about the quality of this team. And ultimately, for anyone who's unaware, let's just run through some of the more notable players.
Yeah, I mean, John Herdman deserves a lot of credit because this is now a country that people want to commit to. Canada lost out on a lot of dual nationals, and I don't blame a lot of them because there wasn't really a project. There wasn't really a goal in mind of what this Canadian men's national team could do. John Herdman came in here after doing an unbelievable job with the women. There was a lot of skeptics around that move, and he answered the bell. First manager ever to take a women's national team and a men's national team to a World Cup, and he just knew what he wanted. He got a lot of dual nationals to commit, and he's completely rejuvenated this side. And a couple dual nationals that have really stepped up is Tajon Buchanan's a big one because he's a player that we had Davies, we had David, I mean, Kyle Larin as well, but just getting this extra quality coming up and taking these type of steps, it was amazing. He was eligible for Jamaica and he chose Canada. We had Stefano Eustachio, who is the future when Hutchinson eventually retires, but he was eligible for Portugal and he committed to Canada, and he has been a night and day player. And I think because of a lot of these performances, he ended up getting a move from Passos de Ferreira up to Porto. Yeah. I mean, and Tajon got the move from New England Revolution to Club Brugge. These players had a platform to succeed. They were put in the right types of position, and they've really, all of them has really taken their game to the next level. I mean, David and Davies are the obvious ones. They do what they do. Mm-hmm. Kyle Larin's goal scoring form has been incredible. Tajon stepping up. Stephen Vittori at the back. Alistair Johnson's been a big one. There's been a lot of, and it was really fun because I remember doing my very first watch along way back when the very first World Cup qualifying match happened. And I'm like, man, there hasn't been a competitive match in over a year. I don't even know where to put this team. I don't even know what formation we're going to play. And we went old school 4-4-2, and you saw still like Junior Hoylett and kind of different players scattered on. And the evolution of that side from that first match to this one has just been night and day, and it's been pretty cool to see.
It's been interesting to see, especially as a U.S. fan. Obviously, the two matchups we had in the World Cup qualifying, and then of course that victory Canada had a couple of years ago. I believe that was in the Gold Cup when they beat U.S. on
Nations League.
On Canadian soil. Exactly. I mean, at that point, I think that was kind of the turning moment where U.S. soccer fans were forced to take Canada more seriously. And just as you noted, all these players playing in Europe, I think a lot of people who are tuning in right now to this show might not be aware of that the majority of Canada's starting 11 plays in Europe. So it's pretty interesting. And let's talk about the team chemistry, because I think that's what jumped out to me the most. You don't see that on paper, but the way this Canadian squad plays together, it's dynamic.
It's the brotherhood. I mean, it's what John Herdman's been calling it. And it's been very interesting. I mean, Ike Ugbo was another dual national who was recruited on. And Doniel Henry did a very interesting interview with Christian Jack, and he basically talked about the brotherhood and making sure that anyone who comes in to this team is going to buy in. Mm-hmm. There's going to be no bad eggs in this locker room. Everyone's going to fight night and day for each other. And it was very interesting. And I know personally that the players have been overlooked because of attitudes and this and that. And John Herdman's very particular about who he wants in his side. And he really likes loyalty, and you've seen a lot of the same players. They may not be in great form for their clubs, but they bring something to this Canadian men's national team side, and they're there, whether it's for the locker room, whether it's coming on as a CONCACAF type number 9 to see out a game, or a center back to see out a game. He's got a reasoning why everyone is there, and I think that's the reason the players truly believe, a reason that they buy in, and a reason that they've pretty much all taken their game to another level. Whether they're playing really well for their club or not, the second that Maple Leaf is on, they're just a completely different player.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Herdman, what he's done is amazing. He's even captured the interest in coaches abroad. Carlo Ancelotti, right? He recently came out and said that, Italy's not in the World Cup. Canada, I believe his wife's from Canada, if I'm correct. Talk about that, just the random interest that this chemistry of this team is catching fire.
I think the funny thing is because Carlo Ancelotti is one of the most decorated managers in soccer. He truly is. He's the first manager to ever win the a league title in the top 5 leagues around the world, and now he's the first ever manager to go to 5 Champions League finals.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's coming out and saying, I would like to one day manage Canada, I think is absolutely insane. And on top of that, I think it gets even more insane when you hear fans and pundits saying, not yet. John Herdman, like Carlo, we love you, but we truthfully, I mean, you're not going to replace what John Herdman's doing because he's done everything right. I want to see Herdman stay till the end, to probably 2026 at least, just because I think what he's done can't be overlooked. He's done such an incredible job. And once 2026 comes to end, maybe we'll reevaluate. And I mean, that's a long time from now. I mean, who knows if Carlo will still be interested. But the fact that a manager like Carlo Ancelotti would be interested in the job, and us Canadian fans are like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, that's super cool. But we're happy with John Herdman because it just really speaks to the job he's done for this side.
And likewise, I'm sure there's the European interest in bringing over a guy like Herdman to Europe to coach potentially too, with what he's been able to do. And he has a lot to get ready for when it comes to Group F coming up. Let's talk about the Giants. Obviously, Belgium's in the group. Morocco's in that group. What do you think about the outlook of Group F for Canada?
I mean, it depends. If you want to look at from a realist perspective, the realist perspective is we have the second and third place team from the last World Cup, and then we got Morocco, which is, in my opinion, one of the best.
Croatia too. Yeah.
Croatia was the third. Like, they were second. Belgium was third from the last World Cup, and Morocco is one of the best African sides. So this is a very, very difficult group. I remember at the time, though, the group before had Germany and Spain in it, so I was pretty excited. And that's where the other side is like, well, there's upsets that happen in the World Cup. It's a fact. I mean, you saw the run that the US have went on. You've seen the run that Costa Rica has went on. You've seen the World Cup winner's curse, where you win a World Cup and you get crashed out in the group stage. I mean, Costa Rica topped a group with Italy and England in it, and then they finished third and fourth, and then also Uruguay made it out. So anything can really happen. And the fact that Belgium and Croatia are kind of on their way out from their golden generation, I think gives Canadians a little bit of optimism. I don't think they should go in there thinking they're going to top this group, but anything can happen. And the World Cup has definitely shown that.
It's weird because I'm getting a lot of comments. This I referred to it earlier, that the episode I made 4 weeks ago about the World Cup preview. And there's this perception of Canadian arrogance, which I personally haven't seen. I think your fans have been pretty much under wraps. I mean, relatively speaking. And I was getting battered by Moroccan and Croatian fans commenting, well, exactly what you said with Croatia. There's the perception that they're getting older. Do you agree with that with Croatia's team? And do you think that Belgium kind of falling out of that golden generation? I mean, really, do you think that Canada could get out of group stage is what I'm asking?
I mean, it's difficult. And I've done a lot of different videos on it so far, just talking about it. Yeah. And the reason, I mean, I overlook Morocco a lot, and I'm not doing it on purpose that I think that we're better than Morocco, because I don't. Canada could finish last in this group. Canada could potentially finish second and get through, maybe even first. But I mean, if Canada's going to get through, and that's kind of the perception I want to look at, is because I'm Canadian, I want to assume that they're going to get out. And I think if they're going to get out of the group, they're going to have to beat Morocco. That's going to be 3 big points on there, and then hopefully try to steal something from the other two. But I do think that Belgium and Croatia are worse off in 2022 than they were in 2018. I think not having a player like Eden Hazard, who was a polarizing figure, he's one of my favorite players to watch growing up, because I just think he was a very special player. And then this move to Madrid completely ruined him, the injuries as well. Yeah. So they don't have that X factor. I don't look on someone on this Belgium side, except for obviously KDB, but there's a difference when coming from the midfield when you had KDB as well as an Eden Hazard to just having KDB. They still have good players, of course. Thorgan Hazard, Carrasco, Lukaku, but he's not in good form. Their back three is kind of a very different one than Vertonghen and Ardeviel. So, I mean, I think that Belgium team is significantly worse than the 2018 version. And I think Croatia is a little bit worse as well. They do have some younger players coming up. Guardiola is a nice center back from Leipzig. I mean, Kaleta as well. I still don't think they're as good as that 2018 side. And I think that both these countries aren't careful, Morocco or Canada could come up for the upset.
Now let's talk about the two sides of Canada, though. What would you say is their weak point? What would you say is their strong point for anyone who's tuning in from Group F?
I mean, it's difficult. I think transition and using their speed is where they're going to be deadly. If they line up in the back three, where they allow Alphonso Davies to play as a left wing back, maybe they have Richie Larea when he's in his good form, or maybe they even put Tejan down there. I think using the wingers in their fullbacks they're just so good at it. Samuel Adekubi is taking his game to another level. A player I haven't even touched on. So I think that's where they can, in transition, that's where they can be deadly. I think it's just lack of experience that I personally think could potentially get them. I mean, it's very difficult. They haven't really put in a wrong foot so far, but they haven't also played a country outside of CONCACAF in still well over a year. So I'm very curious to see what these friendlies are going to look like going forward. And I think it'll have some say on maybe what to expect, but we haven't went up against a Croatia. We haven't went up against a Belgium. We haven't even went up against like a Poland. We've gone up specifically against CONCACAF, and Canada's proven that they know how to win in CONCACAF. They still have a lot to prove whether they're going to do it on the global scene or not.
What are the friendlies upcoming for Canada? I'm just kind of curious.
We don't have any officially announced. Okay. There has been, and this would probably make sense to you, there has been rumors. I had a couple sources tell me, but I mean, it's not official, so don't take my word that this is going to happen. But Iran, and it makes sense. Okay. Iran is in a group with you guys. You want to get some CONCACAF feel. I think if you're looking at someone who's probably pretty similar to the US, you'd maybe look at Canada, get that CONCACAF feel in you. Yeah. So, and I mean, I think Canada, I can't speak.
You're helping out Iran there.
I can't speak to this because I don't know how difficult it would be to set up these friendlies. I was told that it's difficult with some of the European nations, that some of them have a years in advance. So I don't know if Canada waited too long or what to exactly expect. So that's why I'm very, very curious to see what type of friendlies we're getting. But I think Iran would have been a very, I shouldn't say easy, but it makes sense, especially if Canada's looking for a friendly. Iran, if you want to play someone from CONCACAF who's probably a bit of a similar style to the US, it's going to be Canada.
And likewise, the US, I believe, just scheduled a friendly against Morocco.
Yep.
So oddly enough, also in your group, and then they're Uruguay is who they. So I could see maybe a South American team, Canada potentially scheduling.
I was thinking like Canada might have to even look at like or countries that didn't qualify, like maybe a Colombia could be one, maybe a Chile, something like that. But I don't know. I don't know exactly what it's like. I don't have any insight, but I did hear a rumor about Iran. So I'm curious to see if it happens. And to me, it makes sense. So I'm hoping we get as many as we can, get as many games as you can going into this World Cup and trying to play as many countries outside of CONCACAF as possible.
And it's tough scheduling European countries with Nations League coming up too. I think their crop of games are in June. And then I want to say September, right around there. Late summer into September.
Wouldn't surprise me if we missed out on a European nation.
Yeah, but I mean, as long as you get someone, as good competition is good competition, and then let's assume this. I'm gonna make the verdict here that Canada qualifies. I'm gonna piss off the Croatians even more. Okay. That they're gonna qualify to move on through group stage. Let's just say that Belgium tops the group, Canada finishes second, followed by Morocco and then Croatia. And
all right, you said it.
So let's say that. Let's just say that, and we'll profile Croatia later on. They move on past the group stage. How would Canada perform in a knockout scenario? I know it's kind of a loaded question, but do you think this team could be suited for a knockout tournament?
I think Canada is definitely suited for the knockout tournament, just considering how they play. However, they're more than likely they're going to play one of Germany or Spain, and I just think that's a step that they're probably not ready for. I mean, who knows? I said if Canada, like I said, their objective should be to try to get a point, try to get a win, try to score a goal. Enjoy this World Cup, enjoy this moment, build for 2026. If they get out of the group, I think that's an incredible achievement. If they make it past the round of 16, I'm going to buy a lottery ticket because it's a very difficult bracket to go on. Making it through a group with Belgium, Croatia, Morocco to have to play more than likely Germany, Spain. I mean, it is what it is, but I do think his Canadian side is built for one. If they had a kinder bracket and they went up against like a Senegal or maybe even like, I don't know, if like a Poland snuck out or something like that, I think this team would be pretty deadly. But I think looking at the group that they could potentially play, it's going to make things pretty difficult.
Let's place Canada into the United States group with England, Iran, potentially, Wales, Scotland, or Ukraine. Would you feel more comfortable in that group if you were Canada?
If we swap positions, man, US got a good draw. I mean, I think so too. They did. I mean, I think Iran to me is going to be similar to Morocco. They're still very difficult. And they could easily take down the US. They could easily take down Canada, in my opinion. But it gives more belief that Canada or US could get a win over Iran as opposed to a win over Croatia. And then depending on who gets out from that playoff, I think they're all beatable from the US perspective as well as Canada. And England's difficult. England's getting better at tournaments, but they've had a long history as well of suffering at tournaments. So I would take my chances getting out of the group way more in the US's group as opposed to Canada's. And you have a way nicer side of the bracket. If you can find a way out, there's a chance that you can match up, have a nice round of 16 matchup.
That's what they're saying. The top finisher in that group, in the US group, has almost a clear path to the semifinals.
Yeah.
So it's almost a layup in a way. I mean, it's never a layup in the World Cup. But last question, and then we'll wind down here is, now if Canada is not to advance, first off, who's your second team that you would support? And third question is, who do you ultimately think will win this World Cup?
If Canada doesn't, I mean, Canada's never been to a World Cup, so it was very easy. This is an easy answer. Well, since I've been alive, it's been an easy answer. So my background is German. So at World Cups and Euros, I cheer for Germany because that's where my biggest background is from. So it just made sense. So if Canada gets knocked out in the group stage, I'll be cheering on Germany in the knockouts, and I think Germany have a decent chance. So I mean, I might as well just stick with them. I think under Hansi Flick, they've completely changed this side around. They've really utilized the Bayern players. I mean, that's where Flick was before, which, I mean, is great. They're in good form, and I think they'd be a scary side to take on. I mean, they're starting to play like a club side, and in my opinion, if you can get a national team playing like a club side, and that's what, in my opinion, out of CONCACAF, is what Canada looked like, it gives you a pretty good hope that they could go on some type of deep run.
And that's what Germany looked like in 2014, when they did win their last World Cup title. All right, Josh. So tell me a little bit about your channel. Anyone listening, what you do. I know you just recently are working with One Soccer as well. So I want to hear a little bit about that, and then we'll wind down.
Yeah, so I started a YouTube channel called JJDTV. We now just specifically cover the Canadian men's national team and any big stories surrounding Canadian soccer. And through it, got a job at One Soccer, where we have a couple series that we do over there, some fun videos, and just trying to do my part. And the main reason I started YouTube was to help the sport grow in Canada. And because of the national team, they definitely helped with that. And because of it, I got a dream job as well as get to talk just what I love every day. So, I mean, if you want to follow me over on JJTV, you're more than welcome to, or on One Soccer.
Make sure to follow Josh at JJDTV. And anyone who's, aspires to be a YouTuber, this is a great guy to look at. You can do it, especially in any nation, really, and it looks like, Josh, being Canadian, supporting Canada, best of luck to you in the upcoming World Cup. I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Canada can do in Group F, as well as if they can advance out of group stage. But with that, guys, that's our 4th episode, week 4 next week. We still to be seen who we're going to profile. We'll keep the train moving all the way until the World Cup starts in November. And with that, this is State of Soccer TV signing off. We'll talk soon.